Greetings. My name is Amber Smith, and on behalf of Evolving in Education, I want to thank you all for joining. Today's date is July the 26th, 2023, and this is our Childhood Education Curriculum Focus Group meeting. So today we have a presenter, PJ Motsiff. He will be exploring the topic, what if students have the answer to educational change? If start with you, PJ, I'll let you introduce yourself and maybe we can go around the room and introduce ourselves.
All right. My name is PJ Motsiff. I am the Director of Curriculum and Instruction in a public school, pre-K through 12 in upstate New York. Sort of my background a little bit is I come from teaching, where I have experience K through 6, and also a background in directing summer camps, and that all comes through a master's in therapeutic recreation. So trying to just make life fun, make learning fun is kind of my goal.
Very cool. Thank you, PJ. All right, who would like to introduce themselves next? Daniel, perhaps.
Hey, how are you? I'm Dan Bedard. I'm originally from Canada. I've been in the United States now for over 42 years. I also have been a director in many hockey school programs, and I am currently the director of the sport management graduate studies at Adelphi University in Garden City, New York. So I've been teaching and coaching for many years, and I absolutely love it, and it keeps you young.
Very cool. Thank you, Dan. Awesome. All right. So would you fellas like to introduce yourselves? Patrick, perhaps? You're muted, sir. On mine, it's the bottom left. Oh, but it's the iPhone. I think it's up maybe. Well, while he's figuring, Jamal, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jamal DePina, everyone. I'm the head of tech for our Evolving in Education group. I've been a technology consultant for the past 30 years here in South Florida. I've been in and around the educational system quite a bit. So plus I have kids. I have 5 children where I've engaging them, and 2 on the spectrum, engaging them in the school system has been quite the interesting journey. So I just really appreciate what Amber's bringing and what we're helping spread around the globe. So welcome, everyone. Appreciate you being here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jamal. Now, does anyone have any insight on where the unmute button is? If Patrick, were you looking for it? You got it. Okay. Okay, cool. So we will go, start with you all. We will, I'm sorry, Patrick, were you trying to talk to us? Okay, no. All right, so we will go into our icebreaker activity. So we will conduct a brief icebreaker to foster a positive and engaging atmosphere. So I'm going to explain it to y'all. Explain that each person will take turns sharing their educational superpower, a positive trait or skill they possess that helped them succeed or navigate challenges in their education. The superpower should be related to their experiences as a student and can be anything from perseverance, creativity, problem solving, empathy, or even a specific academic talent. I'm supposed to encourage you all to keep your sharing concise, allowing everyone to have a chance to contribute. I am also supposed to begin the activity by sharing my own educational superpower. So this is where it gets kind of funny. I actually dropped out of homeschool, so I don't really, it's definitely not my superpower, but so
Is that called running away?
I ran away with the circus after I dropped out of homeschool, actually, for 7.5 years, a traveling family circus called the Sardine Family Circus. If you guys get a chance, check them out. They're amazing. They're a traveling family of street performers from Swindon, England. Very cool. They have great YouTube videos of their show. So, like I said, I dropped out of homeschool. I probably didn't have any great superpower in school. I was really good at math until I started cheating out of the back of the book. So I guess my superpower would be getting by. I don't know. I apologize for the, I didn't think that one through all the way, but I'll pass the torch and let someone else take a turn.
Hey, my superpower is motivation. I try and share whichever stories of trials and tribulations through, regardless if it's school or athletic experience, traveling the world. And I try and get every single one of my students to think about how they could gain any type of knowledge to make them a better person or to help them get towards any of the goals that they're trying to accomplish. And I think that comes from a lot of great people that time out in their life to encourage me as probably a small statured goaltender that was always told I was too small, to turning that into a great positive of going overseas and playing in Europe. And so I've been very fortunate to receive that type of motivation and to pass on to encourage others to try and establish that within themselves.
Wonderful. Very cool. Thank you for sharing, Dan. Very inspiring. PJ, would you like to share?
Yeah, I think my superpower that I possess is attracting the right things at the right time, and really honing in on my intuition. I feel like my journey, my path through life has, when you kind of look back, you can connect the dots, but it's also the ability to sort of trust that that intuition is going to keep taking me in the right place. So I just seem to have connected in all of my worlds, camp and education, with just the right people.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, I definitely believe in the power of intuition. All right, Jamal, would you like to share your educational superpower?
Sure. I feel like I would call it listening. I really loved working with students. I did it for about a year and a half, 2 years, where it was me assisting just like directly hands-on with classrooms of students and just listening, hearing them. I think it's something the better teachers do, and they incorporate what they hear, and they they give feedback to what the students bring them, and I just love that. So I feel like I've tried to incorporate, when I've seen it, I've tried to incorporate it, and I feel like I do it very well. I've been told that I do it very well. And I love this exercise. What a cool way to break ice and introduce folk. I don't think I've ever heard of this. I love this woman. I'm sorry, I didn't. You guys didn't have heard that. But I'm so in appreciation of this, and thank you. That's all I need to say.
Very cool. Thank you, Jamal. And that's an excellent superpower, listening. That's one I lack on somewhat. All right, I see you're here. Patrick, would you
Yes, I think I'm locked in. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Would
All
you like
right.
to share your educational superpower with us?
Jamal, I just heard you say something about listening, and that's exactly what I've been focusing on is closing my mouth and opening my ears more, and actually taking in what people have to say, hearing what they have to say, honoring them, and giving them a platform. And that's, I think, what we need to do for kids. So just like all of us, we all have our vulnerabilities, this little mute thing, right? Little thing that just took me away from connecting to you guys. No panic, reach out. Someone comes in, assists, helps. It's all good. It's about listening, learning, and continuing to expand. So super happy to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing. So I'm just going to set the objectives for the meeting briefly. I believe it's to explore the potential of involving students in shaping educational change. PJ, I'm going to turn it over to you if that's all right.
Yeah. So I'll just give you kind of a little back end history. So the other two gentlemen that are on with me, We have, I think, so Pat is actually my college roommate. God, I don't know how many years ago, the 90s.
90.
And our paths have continually sort of crossed. And one thing I know for sure, we've been envisioning we would lay in our dorm room and be like, we're going to be on stage, we're going to be doing presentations, so there's been this, and here we are, half a century old, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we still believe that that's going to be true. We just never really knew. So we've been to a number of conferences where we've been just investigating, like, what's it going to look like? But what we've recognized, it's been a path of education towards finding ourselves. And as we've, over the last year, he and I have run many miles together, that we have lots of conversations through that. But one of the conferences that we got led to was down to Long Island. And the facilitator at the time of that program was Dan. And so we were down there going through, and I don't know, Dan, it must have been 8 years ago. We were just going through the process of what that program was and how powerful it was in creating leaders through athletes. And Dan can touch on that program a little bit. But COVID hit, and Dan moved north up to Lake George and had reached out to me and said, hey, is there a possibility of us launching that same program up here? And I said, yeah, but can we adjust it? Because right now what I'm feeling is this change that's coming in education. There's not like a self-awareness. There's not social awareness. There's just changes that are going on. And I think it's coming out of COVID, it's coming out of technology. So if we can incorporate that into what schools seem to be asking for, but aren't really sure how to implement. And that triggered the three of us getting in discussions, having lots of conversations, late night meetings, and just trying to figure out what is it that we are good at, those superpowers, and how do we bring those to others? And that's where we are in our journey. We ended up kind of coming up with a program called Be Real to You. And the whole concept is empowering others to empower others to be happy, and kind of just through this world of service is really what we're at. So am I missing anything from your perspectives that you guys want to add in, Dan or Patrick?
No, sorry, I'm catching. I don't know if I'm the only one with bad internet, but I'm just I'm going in and out. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, just the connection between all three of us was just really a positive thing in my life, where a lot of common beliefs of making good happen in our community, but not by way of us just pulling the wagon by ourselves. It was encouraging others to see that it's okay to be kind, it's okay to do great things and not be recognized for just the fact that it makes you feel good, making others feel good. And so it's something that for us, adapting a little bit of the concept and the delivery of the program that I was involved with in Long Island for many years, we're just trying to adapt it to obviously reach out to as many people as we can. I mean, there's great beliefs and great efforts, but it takes an army, it takes a village of us need to try and, with all of the negativity that's going on social media and on our media in itself from the news, to have these two people in my life to help and encourage and look at the positive outlook, to encourage others to do right by their own community.
Pat, anything you want to add?
No, I think that the bottom line, guys, is it comes down to relationships and teaching kids about relationships, helping one another. We're all human beings. We're all in this world. And there's certain things that are important. Kindness, also allowing yourself to be vulnerable, reaching out, turning to somebody else, knowing who your circle is to support you, because no one has it all and no one has it all right. So I think letting kids have a voice and a platform is what they're after and what they're wanting, especially with everything going on with technology and the way technology is evolving. I think it's really important that we get that whole emotional piece in balance with what's going on to counter the fear of what people have about the technology that's going on. So really our whole premise is student ambassadors, student leaders, students that have a voice and a platform to communicate what it is that they want and need in order for them to be able to expand and develop as individuals. So that's what Be Real to You is. It's just being real, listening to what they have to say, hearing what they have to say, and guiding them. But I think there's such a unique passion that we have. It's just service to allow these kids to connect with themselves and who and what they are and what it is that they want. That's really, to me, that just seems to be the continued central focus. How we get there, we can do it alone or we can do it together. Dan and I and PJ have decided to do it together, and that's something that I think that all three of us would equate to. That we're not sorry about that. We're unapologetic when it comes to that, because we know inside what we have to offer kids, and put it together and find the right platform for us. But I think PJ, I think you had a great introduction. Dan, I love what you had to share as well. But what we're all talking about is relationships, relating to ourselves and also then relating to others. So that might be the superpower of listening.
So,
you got to hear what people have to say.
Yeah.
I saw what you did there, bringing it around full circle. Good job.
Yeah. You took my listening one, Jamal. I'll tell you, that was a good one.
Yeah, we
I
get
like
lost
that.
there.
So I think the question that I presented, kind of going into like giving us some focus for tonight, is really about what do our kids need? Like, how are they going to help us if we listen to them? So I've thrown together a visual presentation that I will pop on in a second, but I've run about 15 years. I've had my own soccer program going, and for me, it's allowing players to come to me and go, I want to play for professionally, or I want to play for a certain college. And oftentimes right away, I want to be like, well, that's a challenge. But instead, I allow them to sort of dream and create what it is that they want their world to do, and then just support them. Because if that's what their goals are, whatever it may be, I'm taking it in a soccer world, but in education, if we can create an opportunity for kids to become who they want to become without this false sense of whatever the American dream was at one point, and allow them to move in that direction and just give them the tools for success. So whatever those superpowers are, allow those to really grow. And that's really where we're at. And so we're living it. Right now, I know Dan's feeling it at the upper end of the academia. Pat's working specifically in a middle school right now, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm in a K through 12 building, and it doesn't feel good. Education right now doesn't feel good, only in the sense as you have students in struggle, you have adults in your building in struggle, you have families at home that are going through their own traumas. And I guess we're here to go, well, what are we going to do? What are the pieces that we can play from our perspective of being in it to help make that change, to help guide? And so that's what I thought would be a great conversation for us to sort of drive and work through tonight. Anything else that you guys want to add? And what I'll do is I'll pop on. I'm not sure when I start to share my screen if I'm going to be able to see people, but we'll see here. So I'm going to so if you'll allow me to share, Amber, I don't know if you can do that on your end.
Yes, I'm working on that.
So I just want to elaborate a little bit on what you had said before about giving the kids the tools to succeed. Jamal, in the same situation you're in, I have 5 kids as well. And it's always one of the things where each individual, you want them to be able to discover who they're going to be. And too many times, just like education, parenting kind of mimics that. We want to protect them so much, but we guide them and push them in areas that we think they would be good at, or that maybe it's safe. Whereas I think that more so now I'm learning quickly, just encourage and support them and let them tell you what they want to do. I mean, obviously I'm a huge believer in watching over your children and giving them the tools to succeed. You also have to share some knowledge. And the other part of that is they're going to teach you a little bit about what they could be good at and say, just let me try this. It's okay to fail, but I want to try to become a person. And I'm sure you can attest to that in your 5 children as well.
And Dan, maybe at some point you can kind of touch upon your world, not only as a professor, but also from the standpoint of having kids in 2 different generations. Amber, Dan has some younger ones as well. How old are your youngers?
We are 7, 5, and 3.
So
and my older kids are 28 and 24.
Oh, wow.
So
106.
But just knowing that of what has changed, because I know, Dan, you and your wife have really been seeking out the right space for each one of your kids, and they've all been different. You know, and just going the straight public school route hasn't been ideal or perfect for you guys in those younger years.
Yeah, I think like anything, the pandemic has shown parents that you better wake up and take a role in guiding your children, because it's not everything that you've hoped for in the school system. You know, they focus so much on a child not being able to know that 2 + 2 is 4, but yet that same child can build an incredible architectural design using every single angle in the mathematical world that's needed, and that's all done with blocks. And they might see a future later on, and hey, here's my vision. I think that's really what a lot of the teachers need to do, is focus on what kids are good at and maybe encourage them, rather than say, hey, math, let's take some time and work on that, rather than say, hey, you're doing awesome, or you're an incredible writer, this poetry is amazing, and then just let them thrive and let them do what they do best.
If I could chime in?
Yeah, please.
I really appreciate you're saying I could attest to it, because absolutely. My 5, I have a 28-year-old, 21, 20, and then my last 2 are 11 and 6. So, I mean, I'm right there with you. When I was working with students, the thing that I heard was that we want to, because I I was introduced to a bunch of kids, and it was like a career day, and it started out kind of like, oh, well, just come. And I did that, and then it became this project and program, and it became the seed and catalyst for this larger concept based on what the students were asking for. And the name became born from the frustration of, how do you get everything into what you guys are describing? This stuff, what I'm talking about was like 94, right? This stuff hasn't changed. You're not saying anything critically new, other than, wait a minute, you're an adult actually catching it. That's new, right? Like, that's the fact that, well, that's not true either, because even in the 60s, there were many folk that were crying out saying, we need to love more, we need to help, and we need to listen. This is, you know, what the Vietnam stuff and people crying about that were about. So the student name that I came up with for the student program is the Nerd Initiative. The Nerd Initiative, where we're helping students bring out what is in them any darn way. Everybody knows what a nerd is. Some shy away from it, but those that choose to capture that inner piece of themselves that says, wait a minute, I can be positive or I can be negative. Whatever it is, I have to explore it for me. No one can tell me what it is. I have to explore it. My friends, I believe we're on the cusp of something really great. I love what you guys are describing in terms of listening to these kids, because I feel like giving them a voice is so huge, and pushing it, supporting it, loving it is like part of that missing component that we're describing here in many ways. Nerd is a very cool concept to allow folk to grab onto the internal mechanism that says, wait, that's something I can support and feel good about. You guys look, maybe not you, Daniel, but you guys look old enough to know about Urkel, Steve Urkel, and the whole geeky nerd thing, right? That people realize.
I got the glasses. Sorry about that.
Yeah, right. Well, you don't look that old though, Dan. You know, so I don't know. But the idea is, nerd isn't some terrible thing to be admonished anymore. And you know, it's just, I mean, it never was, right? Like, for those that knew better, nerd was always something to embrace and embolden those that decide. Remember, you guys know the nerd, Revenge of the Nerds, and those movies back then. Yeah. This is what we're talking about. This is almost timeless stuff, and it's something I grabbed a hold of years ago. So that concept, pushing children towards it, I think is helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we all have stories to share and to embrace them. I think they set us up for where our journey is taking us. And I know when I was a young teacher, I didn't care about their story. I cared about delivering curriculum, and I cared about, like, I need to get through this information, like, by the end of the year. As I matured as an educator, it started to become understanding that I can't do anything until I have a relationship. That's when they're going to be willing to go above and beyond for themselves, you know? So, yeah, that's been, all right. So let me pop this on. It looks like I can get onto that now. So let's see here. I want to share this guy right here. All right, awesome. So I can see you guys. So I built out, funny you should say, I built out some stuff through Chat GPT. So I took some AI information yesterday, and I have a program that I'm building out some different things in genially. And it's awesome, kind of putting all this stuff together. It makes life really easy. So let me pop in here.
Amber, how old are your kids?
They're 4. I have 4-year-old twins, little girls.
No.
They're wild. Annie and Ellie. They're my why. They just got finished, or excuse me, they're in the middle of their 3rd week of forest school this summer. You guys have heard of forest school?
Yeah.
They love it.
All right, I'm gonna pop into present mode here. So what if students hold the answers to educational change and we aren't asking questions to them? We're thinking we know what's best as adults because we've already been through the system. We know what school is like. We know what school should be like, and we need to implement it that way. But one of the things that I follow a guy, his name's George Couros, and he wrote a book called Innovator's Mindset, and it's operating within the box, but just trying to be able to see different opportunities from information we're presented with. And one of his things was, are students becoming great learners or good at school? Our kids are ahead of us in terms of figuring out how to quote unquote beat the system. And an educator that's not changing things up and asking more in-depth questions is now sort of getting beat by our students, because they can now go turn to Chat GPT and say, hey, write me a paper on, change the tone of that so it sounds like a teenager wrote it. So now what I'm in the world of doing right now is trying to set myself up for our staff ready for what's going to hit them in the fall. And it's important that we start to ask students where they're at. And Dan and Pat and I have had the privilege of being able to do it in my school last year. They've come in for a couple of visits, working through some of these things. And the power of giving them a platform has been unbelievable. Like, how are you feeling? What are things? And uniquely, the group that showed up in front of us are not what I would say are the leaders of our school. They are, a few of them are students that are struggling a little bit emotionally and trying to figure out what they don't know where they fit in. But they were the ones that showed up when I threw out the idea of science of happiness. Like, let's understand who we are and create our journey together. And I'm going to give you a lot of tools as we do it. And Dan and Pat showed up on a couple situations so that we could work through our program.
One of the cool things as far as the population that showed up at the school, an amazing observation was that they themselves were giving each other compliments on why they had joined the group. And in that moment of letting them speak, they've been in school with some of these kids for 2 to 3 years. And for the first time, they're telling them, hey, you know what? I love when you smile every day. You really cheer me up. And it's just to give them the microphone and say, hey, we want you to be heard. Today's your day. Tell us what you feel. And that group of students that showed up that day did not let us down. They were amazing from start to finish.
Yeah, and the goal when we go into schools is to actually kind of use that platform for them to slide in and work with upper elementary students. It's also a platform for us to hear what's being said from these students and be able to share that with the administration. And because I was there, I was able to bring that right to our superintendent and start talking about some of the things we need to change. And in my case, it allowed me to push out, help the students, it was student driven, push out a survey. We came up with some questions that we wanted to ask, and we pushed that out to the students, but we also pushed it out to the teachers to see, do teachers even recognize or do they relate to the students that are sitting in front of them? And they said they're having a challenge doing that. The students are admitting, the staff here don't really know who I am. They don't really understand where we're at. And so that's the gap that we're trying to narrow. We're operating as, can we bring those two groups together so that we can make this educational change? So here's why we need to make the educational change. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of prompt engineering. I don't know, have you, Amber or Jamal? So prompt engineering is a brand new job. And doing a quick LinkedIn search, there are over 16,000 jobs available being a prompt engineer. And the power of it is it's bringing in right now 6 figures, anywhere between 150, and you can see up there, that was the higher one, $355,000. It's not even a discipline at college yet. It hasn't gotten there quick enough in terms of what the curriculum is going to be to lay this out. But a prompt engineer is simply someone that's feeding information into Chat GPT or into AI so that the information that comes out is real. So it's putting good data system to get good data out of the system. It's asking questions, but not just any old questions, deep questions, more thoughtful questions. So when we talk about like just creative thought or critical thought, kids are still going to need those tools, but it just needs to be taught in a different way for them. But what blows me away is the amount of money, and you don't need a college degree right now with to be able to do any of these. In fact, my 21-year-old just graduated UTampa, and I said, please just search this out. And she's a business major. I go, you have all the tools. Now what you need to do is figure out where you want to go with it, because I think where education is going, it's a game changer over the next few years. Because here's the other end of this. This is prompt engineering. It's jobs that are being created. But the other end of this is the richest kid YouTubers, age 9, making $29.2 million, age 7, 18.5 million, age 8, 1.8 million, age 13, 2.5 million. Our kids right now don't need the education that we once thought was important. All they're doing is they're getting on YouTube and they're opening up presents, or they're sharing toys, or they're dancing, or they're singing. They're just being themselves. And it's attracted views and likes and followers. And now they're influencers. And one of the things that I found in our world of working in schools, leader is almost a negative thing right now, because what happens is when you're a leader, there's an expectation of you have to be good. You have to always be perfect. And so people are always looking at you. And I think the word that we've been using a little bit more, because that's what's coming out, is teenfluencers. Because then you can be who you really are and still influence. I know when I meet with students that are having behavioral challenges, we talk about that. Like, what is it that you're trying to influence? What is it? Because you are an influencer. Are you choosing to take it in a positive way or a negative way? In our community, we need you to be positive, working through those things. But this is what our kids are seeing. They're seeing the possibility of going on YouTube and promoting yourself and making money. So this is a game changer with this generation. I think we're into generation alpha now. The other piece that's just really prevalent is our college athletes. They're making millions of dollars having Instagram followers. Tied in with that is the sponsorship pieces that go along with that. I'm looking at a gymnast she's got 1.5 million followers on TikTok. I don't think she would ever have been known if social media wasn't out there. Olivia Dunn, I think at one point there was a bunch of boys that were at one of their meets, but it was the number of people showing up at gymnastics stuff. It's just because of her influence. But this is what this is what's in front of them, with the possibility, and I don't need a college degree for any of this stuff that's kind of going on. So they're in their brain thinking, what can I do to get attention? And if it's happening, if it's a TikTok trend that's going on in schools, my kids way up in Newcomb that are we're a town of 400 people, are seeing everything that's going on across the world. And if it's a trend, it's showing up in Newcomb. And so we're not hidden. There's no place really right now that's hidden. And so this is where I'm wondering, or this is why I'm suggesting we need to start talking more with students and start asking more questions. So, why does the current model need to change? So I've jumped around looking at some different things. The curriculum right now is really, it's handing out information, it's getting information back, handing out information, but our kids don't need that anymore. I know in my school, they aren't even allowed to have their phone, but they have access to this because it has sort of a negative, you can do negative things on it, so you can't have it. but they don't need the information being shared with them because they can get it quicker. It doesn't need it to be a 30-minute lesson. Just give me a 2-minute YouTube video. I got it. And that's how they're learning right now. Lack of choice. They want to be part of our educational system. I think the big thing, this is where Dan and Pat and I are really worried about, is just the rising rates of teen depression. Right now, they don't feel connected. There's not a relationship with their teachers or even with their peers. They're not recognizing that when they're on Snapchat and they're putting one another down and they're sort of ganging up on one another, and then they got to show up in school and sit in class with that person, what is actually happening to them. So that's huge, like trying to open up that world. And again, tied with social media, technology, how they learn is different than how we learned. And it's fast paced. Their ability, I think what I read one time is our ability to pay attention is less than a goldfish right now as humans. It's just because so much is getting thrown at us. You know, what I heard in our AI conference last weekend was over 100 years, from 1900 to 2000, there was this gradual change of evolution from farming, adding in tractors, and just right into computers. But what's expected right now is between now and 2026 is the same amount of change is going to take place in these 4 years. And that's scary. Like, what is it going to do to families? I mean, what's it going to do to that family structure? You know, and our schools are based on standardization, giving everybody the same information. But we now know, and we now have the capabilities and the tools to individualize instruction. You know, there's a program out right now that can just take my voice and build it into instruction, and I can do it in 11 labs. I can have it turned into 20 different things, and I don't have to do much more work, but it's going to go right directly to those students and what they need. You know, hyper focus on testing. I'm baffled that we're coming out of COVID. We all understand that we're still trying to get our feet underneath us and what is schools looking like. And immediately this past spring, we're delivering our state exams, and they're being weighted just as if they were before COVID. And I'm going, wait, we know that all of these facts and data are just there for us from a social emotional standpoint, yet we're going to get right back into it. And so I think it's time that we really got to navigate in a different direction, and more importantly, asking teens to be involved with this. In fact, we can actually now have the capability of allowing teens to create their own platform of how they want to learn. Is it an auditory platform? Is it visual? And be able to use all of those things. Is it the hands-on? You know, I know where I work, it's up in the Adirondacks, and we're trying to get kids outdoors, get them out of the building, even though those devices are great, but let's get them out and really explore a little bit more from a tactile, hands-on world. So we're in the process right now, of building an outdoor classroom and trying to encourage the teachers to be using that space more.
Yeah, just a quick point, PJ. I think it's the changing world that we're in, right? Because even when you go down and visit grandma and grandpa, it's fun to listen to the dialogue of the geriatric population. Because if Jamal and I were talking about a subject and Jamal gave me his feedback, I'd say, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds right. But now it's like the old people just say, just Google it. And then everyone's fact checking everybody because you don't have to store it anymore. It's like, hey, Jamal, you're very, very well versed in this, but I think you missed a couple of things here. And now we're correcting each other, and we're just this vast amount of knowledge by a push of a button. And so that at the higher end, the geriatrics who are no longer in education, and the young kids that are trying to receive too much information, I just think that the filing cabinet is getting a little disorganized. And it's amazing. It's amazing to me that we can't figure out to change the teaching methods so that we can help them maybe process the information better, maybe store it better, maybe to organize it better, or maybe better utilize it. For me, it's problem solving. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but when the lights go out, people say, what do I do? Well, you can have a flashlight, you can light a candle, you can figure out the problem, you can call someone, but we just all sit there in the dark going, well, mine doesn't work anymore. I don't know what to do. My power ran out, right? So it's great that, it's not only the young kids that are going through the
We lost you for a little bit there.
technological media. We have to change in the classroom.
I
Or
wanna say-
experiencing outside class.
You guys, I'll just say this really briefly. If you get a chance, look into the second brain for what you were saying, Dan. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it, and I can't describe it for you, but one of our members was telling us about it, and it's the second brain. It's some database where you store all this information. It's pretty cool. It sounds sort of relevant, but I'll let y'all get back to it. Carry on.
No, in fact, I was just I'm trying to, so I have about an hour and 20-minute commute to my work. So I'm constantly like, AI and education, how's it going to disrupt us? And that was and it's basically, it's workflow, letting go of some of the things that we can just have sitting there and reflect back to. In fact, I was just telling my partner today, I go, I feel like, I don't think it's that I'm 52 and I'm already having senior moments, but it's possible. But I'm almost wondering if it's because I don't need to hold on to certain things. I can, in 2 seconds, look something up. And so why hang on to that information if it's unimportant? So I don't know, but moving to the other side is where teachers are. What are the things that they're going to be most resistant to? Why did a whole bunch of schools, ChatGPT came out in November 2022, and by December, January, there was already blocking that from going into schools. Part of it, I think, was pumping the brakes to slow it down to find out, well, what is this? But the other piece is the turning to, well, they're cheating. And it's like, well, wait a second, they're problem solving. Like they're figuring things out way faster than we are. And they're working together as a community, as a team community. And so what are we going to do to combat that? So let's just shut them out because we're scared of whatever the technology is rather than trying to get ahead of it. And that's why I'm hoping that come the end of August, when our teachers come back, that I'm able to present some information to them to allow them to feel more comfortable with what's coming, and allow them, and I've given them time this past spring to explore some sites, explore what it is, so that you have a better handle of what's coming. Because I know kids are on TikTok and they're scrolling and they're getting more and more and more, and they're educating themselves, and teachers are on summer vacation. So it's going to be like, okay, how are we going to go about this? But their resistance is coming from feeling loss of control. Increased workload. They're feeling if I have to, individualize my instruction, it's more work for me. Classroom management, are things going to can I control kids when they're on their device, when they're doing things? I mean, they are phenomenal at multitasking. And they can be talking to 6 different people on Snapchats and emails and all at once. And it's like, how are they? I watch my kids every day on the couch doing it. The testing pressures are there. Lack of training, not feeling as though they have what they need to sort of move forward. So they want to just keep things, many of them want to just keep things the way they are. This is what I went into education for. This is how I learned how to be a teacher. I got my curriculum set. Don't disrupt it right now. Let me do what I need to do. And that's where we're at. But we're running into the next 3, I believe 4 years where it's going to be a crazy change. I think how fast, this is where I'm like was blown away. I was in that when everything shut down and we had to go virtual. We were creating things so quickly on the fly that it was like unbelievable, which shows to me that as adults, we have the ability to pivot and move in a direction and be able to still teach and educate when there's a crisis involved. And so even though these are factors that we're feeling like are going to be holding us back, we have the ability. We just got to be sort of given that opportunity to sort of explore and time to be able to kind of create that as educators. Dan, anything, or Pat, anything else you guys want to add from like potential teacher resistance?
All good.
Okay.
So just one last thing for us at the college level, right away when everything started coming out with all this assistance, the university was saying, what are we gonna do? Is this all plagiarism? And some of us on the other side of the aisle were saying, well, in college, you only really have one research class. I said, now, if you could look at every single one of your classes, they're presenting research, but they have to, is this something that if it's kind of like someone writing the paper for you and you having to do the presentation in front of the class, right? So where did this come from? And so it's up to them to have the mindset and the thought process to describe, well, this is what I read, or this is what I put together. And so it's evolving and changing. And to be honest with you, like I said at our meeting, the kids are presenting better work, regardless if it's their own or not, and they have to support it. So, I mean, it's new, so we have to adjust to it.
And I think, Dan, in that world, it's adding in, like, don't just grade the information that they found. How are they relating it to their life, to who they are and where they're headed, to the next job or what they think they want to become? It's trying to personalize that. So now you have you know what? They actually put a process in this where they were of thinking, where it becomes theirs. So, you know, on the horizon, what do we need to do? Like, students need voice and choice. All right. Just like us, when we're thrown into a situation and we're told how to do it, as adults, we share resistance. I know growing up, I was more fearful of what my parents were going to say and do when I got in trouble. I'm not sure that's there right now in our society. I think that parents are real quick to jump on the bandwagon and support their kid rather than getting all the information. And so that makes it difficult, but kids now know that they want to have a voice. And so my job as an administrator is to teach them how to use it. So in our school, they came to me frustrated with the cell phone thing. I said, can we put something together? I go, my goal was to have a social media group going on, social media club that was pushing out all the awesome things that are going on in our school. I go, if you guys can create that, we can, and show what positive things can be happening, we can actually start to morph that into cell phone use and allow more students to be able to use it. But let's start it and get that rolling. And so those are it's just little ideas, little things that kids want more choice, more voice in terms of how the school system is. Customizing education. And again, it's just rethinking our schedules a little bit. Our school in particular, we have moved to Friday afternoons. This is when kids were kind of cutting out, they're checking out, they're ready for the weekend. We bank time during the school week. So we give them extra time in class to work on classes where they need seat time that counts towards New York State. But on Friday afternoons, we shut things down and we go to clubs. Clubs are just things that kids have either come up with ideas for and the teachers are implementing them, or teachers, some skill they have that they're sharing out. And then the other piece to that is we add in all students are involved in STEAM. So they're going to our STEAM teacher and just working through problems that are real life. I mean, one of the ones that they were working on was creating our whole outdoor classroom. And then this year they were working on some cool stuff of just board games, little cool things that that kids can kind of implement within our school. Social emotional learning, that's kind of just, I think Pat actually has been put into a new role because of this. He's a social emotional learning specialist. his school saw the value of that as being a role and the necessity to teach it. Teachers have been resistant teaching it in their classrooms, so they've gone to that as being one of the courses, one of the special courses that they would go to. But they grabbed Pat because of he was already implementing all that stuff in his classroom, and so real quickly they just turned to him and said, "Hey, would this be of interest to you so that we can get this on like out there?" And so he's kind of take down that role last year of doing a lot of just personalizing education, trying to get the emotional piece out in a class so that he can turn and talk with the counselors that are in his school. The multi-tiered systems of support. And again, it's we used to only worry about RTI, response to intervention, the academic piece, but now seeing that whole child, what is going on with the family? What is going on with the child? Where are they at? And trying to bring that all together is huge. And where is the information being stored so that all of their teachers have access to that? You know, and I think I popped it down there at the bottom, but AI, just the leverage of technology and AI and the ability, and here's where that second brain comes in, just we can pop all of that stuff as educators into the system and be able to get access to it real quick. And so that's where I'm excited about being in education and trying to figure out how do we use this to better humanity. You know, and here's where our organization kind of comes in. You know, here's what we are trying to create from a positive, creating positive school culture and climate is teaching critical life skills, self-awareness, social awareness, responsible citizenship, development of teacher-student mentorships. I worked last summer on that, of what does that look like? So a kid has an adult in the building to kind of turn to. Not one of my students this year wanted to give that up. They had the opportunity when they went from 9th to 10th grade to let go of that. Every one of my kids have embraced that and wanted to stay with their mentor. Share information and resources with teens on science of happiness. So that's the other piece that we're like, when we look outward, there's going to be a lot of problems out there, things we can't control. But when we look inward, we get to control the decisions that we make on a daily basis. And I know as a teenager, we're existing because we want that like, or we want that follower. But it's not where the joy and the happiness is, and it's where it's causing the most stress for us. You know, and it goes into what our mindset is, empowering others to empower others to be happy. So in our program, our kids are creating their story. They're discussing their story. Dan and Pat and I are working through how are you going to share your story with those 5th and 6th graders so that you have an impact. They go into the classroom and then we have a discussion afterwards, and the 5th and 6th graders are now sharing information with these high schoolers. Not one adult would have ever been able to pull out that the way that the teens do. And now there's this relationship within the school that they're, oh, I remember you, or I know you. And so it just it continues to kind of grow and grow and grow. And that's why we're, you know, real looking to keep growing and launching and supporting schools as we move forward and grow and learn, like, what is next. You know, I think we're not sure what's next, but we do know this. We know that the level of consciousness needs to raise as much as the level of technology that's going up in order for society to keep moving forward.
Here. I totally agree. And just to echo it a little bit, I love these names. I love these concepts. We're piecing together from so many diverse views and opinions. What is clear isn't a just pigeonhole square. It's round, it's starred, it's so varied, but it's beautiful, and it's scary, yes, but I think it's going to take the many different approaches to bring it together. I mean, it's so weird. It sounds counterintuitive, but that's why we have to focus on education specifically. That's why we have to focus on the child specifically. That's why we have to focus on teachers specifically, parents specifically. Everybody, every niche needs to be discussed, aired out, discovered, relationships formed, ears readied, right? And just technology allows the storage of all of this. Technology is just a tool. I'm finding the concept of AI being feared. That, of course, is the normal response. But blockchain falls right in line. Even the current political stat, it falls right in line with the, is it the five or the not layers of grief, but the layers of grief are similar. Those concepts where you fear it or you chastise it, you get angry at it, and then you start to subdue some of those initial responses, and you begin to incorporate it, and then you begin to actually flourish off of that dynamic of change. You're emboldening yourself to take what was once feared inside, and you develop how to motivate yourself to work with it. That's what we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it's hecka exciting. It's hecka exciting. I just love it. I love it. I loved hearing this.
Well, it's small because the concept, the idea that I wrap my teachers' brains around is, I go, who are the Wright brothers? And their idea is, well, they invented in their pilots. I said, yeah. I go, they were really good at what they created, but what would you do if you're hopping on one of our jumbo jets and the Wright brothers is standing there ready to fly it? They don't have the ability to do that with all the technology. They created it and they started this idea of flight, but it's rolling. And so if, as an educator, you're not continuing to up your game and be part of that conversation, it becomes problematic. You're just like the Wright brothers. You're sitting there in a stale space. Nobody wants to hear you.
Yes, Jamal, I think what you were talking about is that the layers of acceptance, kind of like Maslow's thing. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, Dan, I wanted to touch on a couple things you said quickly. You said something that made me think of Nikola Tesla, about how, you're not looking for the credit. You're just looking to get it done. I like that a lot. We're the same way evolving in education, just we would like to see this change implemented. And it is going to take a village or an army, and that's always been a goal of evolving in education, is to bring together as many of the people that are already doing these things like yourselves, as possible. Unite, because stronger in numbers. So I really look forward to working together with Be Real to You. I sure hope to. And PJ, I love what you were saying about, the mentorship. We aim to, through our community integration initiative, we aim to do mentorships, etc. Also, I really like what you said about rethinking the standardized testing and scheduling, and embedding social emotional learning and mental health into education. I mean, that's crucial. Additionally, I think mindfulness would be a great addition.
Yeah.
And nutrition, well-being. And yes, I truly believe that we must integrate tech wisely, both wisely and ethically. And I think it'd be wise for us to not, to utilize it. Sorry, Jamal, go ahead.
Oh, no, never apologize to me, sister. The technology has not kept up because technologists have typically been geared towards us. We have been talking to us, just like educators speak to educators, just like students only speak to students, just like parents parents don't typically talk to other parents, right? PTA. But the concept is, tech will, the more we come together, the more tech will start to emulate the masses of users, because it doesn't do it well enough. As a tech guy, it's unacceptable. If I were to consult for most of the organizations I come in contact, I would say your user interface stinks. It just stinks. You're not dealing with humans, you're dealing with other tech people, and we're not human. Guys, I come from this, and the flavor is tech. It's like, no, everybody has their own flavor. Get into their minds. And some of the better companies do it, but just not enough. Just sharing that, guys. We know, you know.
That's another huge goal of evolving in education, Jamal, is to involve as many stakeholders, to get these people communicating, to bridge the gap, the communication gap, because that's key. One more thing, Dan, really quickly, I want to touch on what you said. You said about needing to nurture and foster these children's superpowers and find what they're good at and let them do that. That's always been, what I've 100%, believe in. And
I think honestly, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have all these new technology, right?
Yes.
These kids have incredible imagination, and they've designed games that for them, or for us, it didn't make sense, but for them, it was clear as day. And once they put it together, millions of people follow. That's, who knows what the future holds. It's just a matter of encourage them to be creative and do what they love best.
Yes, I feel that like overarching curriculum and integrative curriculum, we can build off their, like, let's say they like boats, they can learn the area of the sail, they can learn about water density, all that, they can learn temperature, do math, like the overarching. I really think that's going to be something
Well, they're doing it everywhere else in the world, right?
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to play hockey in Sweden, and being involved with helping the programs. They'd be outside and doing exactly what you're saying. They're learning how to sail. They're learning how to forage in the woods, how to survive. What would you do if you're left alone here? What would you do for survival? And how would you think through adapting? And that's amazing. I mean, to me, that's incredible. And then you put a kid in front of a computer, and now they can create something, or you put them in front of a piece of clay and they can mold something. It's amazing, but we can't just pigeonhole everyone into certain guidance that is misleading in my mind, whereas they know where they want to go. Just support them and encourage them.
So Amber, we dubbed that concept dreamitation. The idea of dreaming and sort of meditation, like what is it that you want to become, and how can we help you get there? And so that's what we want everyone to be able to do, because ultimately, what is our journey? It's about waking up every day, being peaceful, being happy with what we're doing. I know I was seeking the big house and the money and all of that, but as I get aged up, I start to realize like my relationship with my kids, my relationship with my partner, like my ability to wake up and be healthy. Like the little things now are the big things in my life. But I watched my parents work and work and work and work, and I'm not sure their relationship was healthy because they were so tuned into that. But that was my trauma growing up. And I'm like, I don't want that for my kids. And I know for many years, that's who they saw. But as I've made my adjustment and change, what I've recognized is my kids are now looking at me going, Dad, talking about just like meditation, and them seeing me run 100 miles in a month, like from a healthy standpoint, like those are things that they love talking about, and it's awesome. Those little things.
That's awesome. And you're leading by example. We're turning away from that. I think more and more society is, coming to the realization that, money doesn't buy happiness. Yes, you have to have money to live in this world, but I mean, it's a time for rethinking, with everything that's going on. And I know people are waking up. Consciousness is here, and I'm sure grateful because it's about time.
And the realization is that there is so much abundance in this world, and it's trying to just, the abundance is showing up when you're in a good space. That stepping of feeling good, every step I make and every choice I make because it feels good is taking me to that place. But when we're not in a good space and school doesn't feel well, and we're being judged on a grading system because you think I should be 100 student, and now there's, from a teacher's perspective, this idea of, well, that kid doesn't come from the right family, so I'm going to grade him a little different than I'm going to grade the person that's the star athlete. So there's this whole, and so now I'm meeting with kids that are going, I don't want to be going to college. I want to work right here in town as soon as I'm done with high. And so what's wrong with that? Let's allow them to be successful, challenge them. So it needs to change, and the kids have the answers.
Yes, definitely. Change is coming too. I'm excited to hopefully work with you guys on this further, and we can be the change, I had a thought today, and this is random, but I thought evolving in education, because someone has to lead the education revolution. I mean, but we're not trying to, be the leaders. We're trying to combine all the forces, all the people are already doing all these things. And so I'm so glad you guys came here today to discuss this.
Amber, can you do me a favor? Can you share with Dan and Pat what your occupation is?
Yes, I do underwater construction, demolition, and bridge inspection.
Is that not amazing? Like, I'm just thinking how you even have time to do what you're doing in education right now. But again, our blueprint of this world, and I'm not sure how you got into that, but our blueprint of this world of gender and what we identify as things like that needs to change, because there's no, our joy is what we're doing, is how we're living.
Yes, we're definitely redefining. Well,
And like Jamal said, I think you're an amazing person, and now I know why, because I can't swim one lap underwater in a pool listening to myself, and I can't imagine you all day long working.
my record was 18 hours underwater.
Oh, wow.
Or 17 and a half.
Wow.
I went under Thanksgiving night at 8:30 p.m. and I didn't get out of the water till Black Friday at 1:30 p.m. I can't remember the math exactly, but that was a long time. And the whole time I had zero visibility, so I kept my eyes closed the whole time, because if you're in the dark and you keep your eyes open, you get fatigued. So, and that I found out that is probably why like my right brain functions more, because in that that time with my eyes closed, I was actually in alpha, which is like meditation, so I spent like hundreds of hours in alpha working underwater without even realizing I was in that sort of brain frequency. But I'm definitely an unlikely fit for this role and pioneer in education, or at least trying to. But like I said, somebody's got to get out
Not
of
true.
there.
Not true. Sorry.
Thank you,
Every
Jamal.
once in a while, I have to jump in there. Yeah, not true. You're a perfect match for exactly what we're talking about. We have to come from the innovation that stems from being so freaking good at what you do. You zone. Michael Jordan would be such the perfect. Well, he is. If you listen to some of his discussions, he talks about how when you're in that zone, you're just there. Many athletes get this. Many, because it's something where you practice it enough, where you just become the ball, right? You be the ball. And that's what's like amazing. When you tap into that, we need to give that to the kids. We need to give that again to parents. We need to give that to the teachers. We need to pass this generational recognition on and through, like we've talked about, Amber, through us. You're perfect for this.
That's flow states, what you're talking about, like being in the zone. You guys familiar with flow states?
Yeah.
Flow states is also known as being in the zone. Productivity and focus is increased by like 500%. Whoa, that's pretty fascinating. But to be mindful of everyone's time, I guess does anybody have any last things they'd like to share, or anything
No,
to
just
add?
thanks for the opportunity to kind of connect and have conversation and share what's going on in upstate New York right now.
Thank you so much for sharing, PJ, and for presenting, and thank you all for joining. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I look forward to doing it again sometime, hopefully.
Appreciate it.
Thank
very
you,
much.
guys.
Alrighty, thanks, Jamal.
You guys have a
Nice
wonderful
meeting you
evening.
guys.
Thanks
Great
again,
meeting you.
PJ, and thank you
All
all
right.
so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Have a
Bye-bye.
wonderful evening, guys. Bye now.